Oh no, don't tell me you're about to read a rulebook. Put it down. Seriously, you do not need that kind of stress in your life. Just rip it up, toss it aside, and let me do the heavy lifting for you. I'm Ryan from How I Roll, and in this Rip Up the Rules, I'm going to teach you how to set up and play X Seekers of Fortune so that you can out-adventure your rivals and claim the ultimate prize without ever even cracking that rulebook. And hey, if you enjoy learning games the easy way, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future Rip Up the Rules, reviews, and more board game goodness. X Seekers of Fortune is designed by Danny Ayoub and Joel Watts, and it's published by Moth Studios, who helped sponsor this video. It's a game for 2 to 3 players if you have the first edition, or 2 to 4 players with future editions, and it lasts somewhere around 30 minutes. So hop on over and let me show you how this game works. If you've ever dreamed of being Nicolas Cage in National Treasure, here's your chance. X Seekers of Fortune is a competitive card game where you're racing to complete adventures by collecting the right leads and using powerful ActionX cards to outplay your opponents. It plays quickly, it's interactive, and it's all about timing, disruption, and knowing when to go for it. Think you've got what it takes to be the greatest adventurer at the table? Let's find out. Here's how you set up the game. Shuffle a deck of lead cards and deal 6 to each player, and then place the deck within reach of all players. Do the same with the deck of ActionX cards, but instead only deal 1 card to each player. And lastly, do this with the adventure deck and deal each player 3 face-up adventure cards. Finally, give a player aid to each player. Make sure that you leave room for a discard pile beside each of these 3 decks. Also, note that in this video, I'm using the deluxe version of the game, which includes these player mats, which have a clearly marked active zone and archive zone. If you're playing without these, just make sure you keep these zones distinct with your active zone on the left and your archive to the right. And that's the whole setup. The player who most recently lost a round of X Seekers of Fortune is the start player. But if this is your first game, flip a coin. Beginning with the starting player, players will take turns in clockwise order that walk through 4 steps, all in a race to be the first player to complete 5 adventures. Once a player finishes their 5th and final adventure card, the game ends and that player is the winner. Each of your turns is broken into 4 simple phases, which are clearly laid out on these player aid cards. These are reveal an adventure, draw leads, take action, and end turn. So let me break down each of these steps and then you'll be ready to get playing. The first step is reveal an adventure. At the very start of this step, you need to reset any leverage cards you have in play. At this point, you have no idea what that means, but it will make sense in a bit. But for now, just know that any ActionX cards you have in play that are sideways should be turned back to their normal position. Then you take 1 adventure card either from the top of the adventure deck or from the top of the adventure discard pile and add it to your adventure zone. You can only ever have 3 adventure cards in play. So anytime, including during this phase, you draw past 3, you have to scrap the excess so you only have 3. Whenever you see the term scrap come up in this game, if it's an adventure, it means you add it to the discard pile. But if it's an ActionX card, it goes to your archive. The second step is to draw leads. Here you have 2 options. You can either draw 2 leads from the top of the lead deck and then discard any 1 lead from your hand to the lead discard pile, or you can just take 1 lead from the top of the discard pile and then you don't have to discard any. There, those first 2 steps are simple. Once you've done that, it's on to step 3, the action phase. This is where the game really takes place. In this step, you have several options of actions that you can take, and you can take them as many times and in any order that you'd like, as long as you can pay for them. These actions include completing adventures, playing and using your ActionX cards, and performing heroic feats. Let's break those down, starting with completing adventures. Each adventure card shows a collection of emblems on them that are needed in order to complete them. You'll pay this cost with lead cards from your hand. So, for example, this adventure card requires 2 runes, 1 glyph, and 1 vision. If I had those in my hand, I would reveal them and then create a pile with them and the adventure card on top and place them in my archive zone. Whenever you complete an adventure, you immediately gain the reward listed on the bottom. So back to this example, I would draw 1 lead card and 1 ActionX card from the top of their respective decks. Remember that completing 5 of these adventures is how you win the game, so this is very important. The number of leads required on various adventures varies, and each of the adventure cards contribute equally to winning the game. However, the more expensive the adventure, the greater the reward on the bottom of the card will be. So start saving up if you want to cash in big. Now, one important step happens whenever a player completes their 4th adventure. Since you're nearing the end of the game, you enter the final adventure phase and must first discard all the lead cards you currently have in your hand. You then reveal a new adventure card and place it in your adventure zone. If it's your only adventure card, you gain a second one as well. Of the adventures in front of you, the next player in turn order now chooses one of those for you to keep and then scraps the remaining adventures. And finally, you draw 3 new lead cards into your hand and continue your turn as normal. One more note about this final adventure phase. You can still have up to 3 active adventures as per normal, but once you're on your final adventure, you now skip the reveal and adventure phase at the start of each of your turns. The other actions you can do are to interact with your ActionX cards and to perform heroic feats. Let's take a look at the ActionX cards now. There are 3 types of these cards as depicted in the top left corner. These are Feats, Sights, and Relics. Feat cards are one-time effects that are triggered immediately when you play them. For example, if I played this Mythic Revelation card, I would get to immediately do what it says, which is search through the adventure deck for whatever card I want and take it, and then reshuffle the adventure deck. Once you've resolved the effect of a feat card, you immediately put it in your archive area. So for a feat, you play it, use its effect, and then archive it. Easy. The sight cards are played into your active zone and stay in play until something causes them to be archived. Each sight has 2 abilities, the aura that is listed on top and an exploit ability beneath it. The aura of a sight is either an ongoing or reusable ability that can be activated throughout the game. For example, the Rivals Dig sight has an aura that makes all rivals play with their lead cards revealed as long as it's in play. Or the Digger's Dugout's aura makes it so whenever a rival scraps an adventure, you can take it and add it to your adventure zone. The exploit area of these sight cards represents an action you can utilize anytime during your action step by paying a cost. Back to this Rivals Dig sight. It says I can discard any 2 lead cards and then choose a rival who has to reveal their hand in ActionX cards. From those, I get to choose one of each to bury. Whenever you see the term bury, it means you place that card at the bottom of its respective discard pile. So I could take these 2 and place them here. You'll notice that the exploit ability of the Digger's Dugout has this strange yellow icon on it. We'll come back to that in a moment. But as one more example, with this exploit, I can discard a lead and then gain control of any one of my rival's active relics. Both of these sites say archive at the bottom of their exploit ability, which means beyond the cost I already paid to activate them, they also have to be placed in my archive area and are no longer active. Almost all of the sites in the game will be archived after their exploit ability gets triggered. Now back to that little mysterious yellow icon on the Digger's Dugout. There are 4 icons like this that show up on these ActionX cards and they're laid out in this key in the rulebook here. I guess maybe we shouldn't have ripped that up. This bond icon means that when you play this ActionX card, you immediately have to pair or bond a lead card with it from your hand. For example, to play Shrine of the Wild Tongues, I must also bond a lead card from my hand to it, which gives me the ongoing ability of that lead color, in this case red, being wild as long as it is in play. This delay icon just means that this ability can't be used on the turn this card is played. We saw this on Digger's Dugout, so I would just need to wait at least 1 turn after playing the card to use the exploit ability. This leverage icon means that the ability can only be used once per turn, and when you use it, you have to leverage the card by turning it sideways to show that it can't be used again this round. For example, during my turn, I can rotate the Ruckus Bazaar to look at the top 2 leads of the lead deck, taking 1 and giving 1 to a rival. 2 important reminders about the leverage cards. First, a leverage card can never be exploited. And second, remember at the very start of step 1 when I said your leverage cards get refreshed at the start of your turn? Well, now it all makes sense. You get these cards back to use each turn. And finally, this twist icon means that an ActionX card can also be used during a rival's turn, like this Follow the River Feat card that can be used to gain the Thwart ability during someone else's turn. We haven't covered what Thwart means yet, but we'll get there in a second. But for now, just know it's a pretty satisfyingly rude move you can pull against your opponent. And with those icons covered, as well as Feat and Sight cards, the final remaining ActionX card type is Relic. Like Sights, Relics are placed into your active zone and remain in play until they're archived by an effect of the game. When you play it, you get to choose if you want to be kind and place it in Noble mode, or if you want to be a bit meaner and put it in Ruthless mode. If you choose Noble mode, point the bottom of the card toward you, but if you choose Ruthless mode, point the bottom toward your rivals. Whichever way you play it, it will create one specific ongoing effect. For example, if I put Guardian Stave in Noble mode, I would gain an ongoing benefit every time one of my rivals archives an ActionX card. But if I chose Ruthless mode, it would cause a rival to bury one of their archived ActionX cards whenever I archive an ActionX card. And with that, we've covered how to complete an adventure and also how to play the 3 types of ActionX cards. The other option you have during the take action phase of your turn is to perform a heroic feat. These heroic feats are what truly makes this game sing, and mastering these is what takes you from being a young grasshopper to a full-fledged expert. All of these are nicely listed on the back of this player aid card. As always, let me break these down for you right now. First up is Thwart. Thwart is your way to hit cancel on one of your rival's heroic feats. Anytime another player performs any heroic feat or ActionX feat, you may thwart it by burying 2 matching lead cards by placing them at the bottom of the lead discard pile. For example, if my opponent was playing this make off with card on their turn, I could take these 2 lead cards, since they match color, and put them at the bottom of the discard pile to thwart their feat. They would immediately archive this card without it taking any effect, unless of course they thwart my thwart. Thwart is a bit of a special heroic feat, as it's the only action that you can take on another player's turn, and it's the only heroic feat that can be performed more than once in a turn. And thwarts can thwart thwarts, and so on. A lot of thwarting can go down. The rest of the heroic feats can only be done once each. Here are the rest of them. When you sabotage, you get to mess with one of your rivals. You simply discard 1 lead card and also scrap an active resource to do it. Now in this game, when you see the term active resource, this is referring to any ActionX or adventure card that's in your active play area. In return for removing one of these and a lead card, you now get to choose a rival and get rid of one of their active resources. If it's an ActionX card, archive it, but if it's an adventure card, bury it. You can also barter to gain a new adventure card. To do so, you discard any 3 lead cards or 1 ActionX card from your hand. In return, you look at the top 2 adventures from the deck, reveal one, and discard the other. Breakthrough is your opportunity to stock back up on ActionX cards. You must discard 3 matching lead cards from your hand, and then you gain the top card from the ActionX deck. There are 2 heroic feats left, but there's a really important note you need to know about this breakthrough heroic feat. The primary way to win this game is to complete 5 adventures. However, Breakthrough offers one more sneaky way to claim victory. Once you've completed 4 adventures and you're on your final adventure, if you have at least 7 ActionX cards in your active area and archive combined and you perform the breakthrough action, you win the game immediately. For example, I'm currently on my 5th and final adventure. I could save up the leads necessary to complete one of these adventures. However, I check and see that I have these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ActionX cards in my active area and archive, which meets the threshold of 7. So I decide to discard these 3 matching leads to perform the breakthrough, and I immediately win the game. But beware, your rival can thwart your breakthrough since it's a heroic feat. You'll only win if the breakthrough is actually successful. Alright, as I said, there are 2 final heroic feats. These are Negotiate and Poach. Now these 2 are a bit special as they have 2 specific rules to them. First, they can't be used until at least 1 player at the table has completed an adventure. If no one has completed an adventure yet, these actions aren't available. Second, you can only use these actions if you're either tied with or behind at least 1 other player for the number of adventures completed. Basically, anytime you're alone in the lead for completed adventures, you can't do Negotiate or Poach. Negotiate allows you to scrap one of your active adventures. In return, you look at the top 3 cards of the lead deck. You put 2 of these in your hand and donate the 3rd one to one of your rivals. And with Poach, you can discard a lead card from your hand in order to trade one of your active adventure cards with one of your rivals. And those are all the actions you can take in a turn. Here's a quick recap of the turn structure so far. In step 1, you restore any leverage cards and reveal an adventure. In step 2, you draw 2 leads from the deck and discard 1 from your hand, or just gain the top lead from the discard pile. And in step 3, you perform any actions you're able to and would like to. These actions are using leads to complete adventures, using ActionX cards, and performing heroic feats, remembering that each heroic feat, besides thwart, can only be done once per turn. After that, it's time for step 4, which is simply when you end your turn. At this point, you can't have more than 7 lead cards in your hand. If you do, discard some until you only have 7. There's no limit, however, to how many ActionX cards you can have in your hand. Then, let the next player in clockwise order know that you're done and that they can take their turn. And that's it, besides 2 more small notes. First, if you ever start your turn with 0 leads in your hand, you have the option of resting for that turn, which might not sound like the most exciting move, but sometimes it's a necessary way to catch back up and take the win. If you choose to rest, you reveal 2 adventures from the top of the deck, adding them to your active area, and draw 3 leads from the lead deck. Besides scrapping any excess adventures if you now have more than 3, you don't take any actions and your turn ends immediately. And it's important to know that resting can't be thwarted. I mean, disturbing someone else's precious nap would just be too cruel. Also, if the leader adventure deck ever runs out of cards, take the discard pile, leaving behind the top card, shuffle it, and place it face down to form a new deck. Players continue taking turns like this, going clockwise around the table until one player has claimed victory. Once a player has completed their 5th adventure, or has performed the breakthrough action while on their final adventure with at least 7 ActionX cards in their active and archive areas, they immediately win, and the rest of the players are now labeled Seekers of Misfortune. And that's X, Seekers of Fortune, with exactly 0 rulebooks required. If you do still have your rulebook intact, there are some beginner variants listed to help new players ease into the game. You can consider using those if you'd like to get the basics down more quickly. However you play, I hope you have a fantastic time with this game and that this video was helpful for you to dig right in. If you've got any questions about the game or need a rule clarification, drop them in the comments below because I'm always happy to help. I've linked the BoardGameGeek page for the game in the description below if you want to learn even more. Thanks so much for joining me for another Rip Up the Rules.